In this crazy play, it's Hamlet versus the rest of the world. Let's take a look at Hamlet's former friends and current enemies next. You'd think that a guy could at least count on his parents, right? But Hamlet's stepdad, the scheming King Claudius, and his treacherous mother, Queen Gertrude, are either busy shipping him off to foreign lands or trying to get him killed. Nice. So what about the GF? Nothing like the comfort of the girl you love when you're in trouble, right? But Ophelia, convinced by her father and brother that Hamlet will only break her heart, spurns him. And in Hamlet's time of need, too. That's harsh. Okay, so forget the family and the GF. At least Hamlet's friends have his back, right? With names like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, what could his friends be other than fools? Not only do they do Claudius's dirty work by trying to prove Hamlet mad, they also cart him off to England where poor Hamlet is going to be killed. With friends like that, who needs enemies? Well, enemies is right, because everyone else in this play has it in for Hamlet too. Polonius, Ophelia's father, helps Ophelia break Hamlet's heart, and Laertes, Ophelia's brother, kills Hamlet with a poisoned sword. Surrounded by people like that, no wonder Hamlet went crazy. The full title of this play is The Tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. So why is it a tragedy, other than because of the fact that everyone dies? I've got an even better reason, so stick around. Here are the signs you're reading a tragedy. Whatever you're reading deals with a somber theme. Check. If you watched Recap 7, you know that this play focuses a lot on death. Whatever you're reading ends with your main character's destruction. Check. If you've been watching all along, you know that Hamlet dies. But I think this play is mostly a tragedy because no one understands Hamlet. Here's what I mean. We spend the whole play watching as the other characters accuse Hamlet of madness, right? His mother does, his stepfather does, his friends do, his girlfriend and her family do. And Hamlet may desire revenge, but does that make him mad? Not in contrast to Claudius, who dreams up one dastardly plan after another. Not in contrast to Ophelia, who literally does go crazy, spends one scene singing nonsense songs, then drowns in the river. Hamlet may be a mystery. He may struggle with depression and cynicism. But what's truly tragic about him is that he's misunderstood. And he's misunderstood by a group of characters who have their own agendas for calling him crazy. Okay, check this out. Hamlet has puzzled scholars for like centuries. And I'm not saying I've got it all figured out. Not by far. But if I told you I had one more insight that could help you understand this play a tiny bit better, would you be willing to stick out the next 60 seconds? Less than 300 lines into this play, Shakespeare gives his readers a whopping big clue. It's Hamlet's line to the Queen in Act 1, Scene 2 when he remarks, "They are actions that a man might play." In other words, Hamlet is a play about play acting. If you've been watching all along, you already know that Shakespeare uses Hamlet to explore life's uncertainties and mysteries. The play's focus on play acting helps reinforce these themes. Think about it. Another word for acting is pretending. And what are you doing when you're pretending? You're not being true to who you really are. You're becoming another character. That's what happens in Hamlet. The actors have to act like they're acting. Like the guy who plays Claudius. We know that Claudius is actually a really demonic guy, but he pretends to be concerned for Hamlet, all the while plotting Hamlet's death. My point. Thinking of this as a play about playing helps you understand its themes and what Hamlet faces. It also helps explain why this play remains somewhat of a mystery. You might say Shakespeare was playing at something, too. It's 3 a.m. and I just got an email from my girlfriend, Ophelia. It's a link to some online survey to see whether I'm crazy or not. Here, look. I guess I don't have anything better to do, so here goes nothing. Okay, question 1. These are all true or false. I think about death often. Hello, my father was just murdered. Question 2. I have frequent thoughts about hurting others. Only King Claudius and my mother, but I guess that makes the answer true. Question 3. I believe that others are plotting to kill me. I don't believe it. I know it. True. Question 4. I believe that I would like to kill myself. I don't know that I'd like to kill myself, but do I want to? Here it is. The mystery of my sanity will at last be solved. Shoot, I think this site just crashed my computer. I'm sorry, did you say something? No? I guess all this talk about ears and hearing has me, hearing things. Anyway, I'm hoping you'll hear me out on this motif, so stay with me. If you watched Recap 5, you know that Hamlet is a guy who's obsessed with finding out the truth. Ironically, he spends most of the play interacting with characters who are intent on deceiving him. Perhaps this helps explain the motif of ears and hearing that appears throughout this play. Think about it. How do we find certainty? Through words, right? Through language. But while language can help us get at the truth, it can also be used to distort or obscure the truth. That's where Claudius comes in. He distorts the truth to manipulate others and to gain power. Shakespeare made the connection pretty obvious when he had Claudius kill King Hamlet by pouring poison in the king's ears. And the corrosive effects of the poison on the king represent the way Claudius's dishonesty is literally eating away at the health of Denmark. In other words, anytime Shakespeare makes a reference to ears or hearing in this play, listen up. He wants you to remember that truth is hard to come by and that words can be our friends or our enemies. Right to the top.
All set? We're rolling.
So it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that the nature of death is one of the plays of this theme. No.
We're still rolling.
And away from it and blah, 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 blah. Perhaps this helps explain. I can't speak. Hamlet has puzzled. For example, if you watch, sorry, no, I got the giggles. Okay. And I'm not saying I've, and I'm not saying I've all got it figured out. No.
Do it again. We're still rolling.
Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna do it right this time. I didn't even know that my stomach growled. All the spends one seam. Sorry, you've taught me well. If you,
I'm sorry, my fault. I just broke the rhythm.
don't. On the one hand, Hamlet's plot is about as careening and convoluted as they come. On the other hand, it's incredibly simple. Here's what I mean. Here's the plot of Hamlet. The ghost of Hamlet's dead father returns to ask Hamlet to seek revenge on Claudius, his murderer. Hamlet dillies and dallies, searches for certainty regarding the ghost's claims, finds some, and skewers Claudius like a piece of barbecue meat. The end. Okay, I'm kidding, of course, because the dillying and the dallying are what make up the bulk of this play. And Hamlet's scenes in between meeting the ghost and exacting his revenge are also what provide clues to his madness or his sanity, depending on how you look at it. For example, he has words with Claudius. He has words with his former friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He sets a trap for Claudius. He has words with his ex-lover, Ophelia. He tries to kill Claudius and fails. He kills Ophelia's father. He has words with his mother. He's banished to England. He's captured by pirates. He returns and duels with Ophelia's brother, which is when he finally learns for sure that Claudius killed his father and can act. In the end, Hamlet gets his revenge and then dies. A madman? Maybe. Or maybe mad just describes the mind of a man who could come up with a plot like this one. Be prepared. Shakespeare's Hamlet actually asks more questions than it answers. We'll take a look at this play full of mystery in just a moment. First, a few words to describe Hamlet. You could call it a tragedy, which it is. You could call it a play about revenge, which it also is. You could also call it a hodgepodge. It's like Shakespeare took all his best tricks, ghosts, spurned lovers, land disputes, pirates, poison, a duel, a dead royal family, and tossed them into a big stew pot. Stir and serve. Somehow it works. But bells and whistles aside, there's one more word that describes this play too. It's the word mystery. Because not only is Hamlet's plot a little less than straightforward, its message is too. For example, our hero, Prince Hamlet. Is he really mad, or is his madness an act? What is madness anyway, and who is more mad? Claudius, who commits the sin of killing Hamlet's father, or Hamlet, who goes crazy with revenge? Here's another question. Can we trust Hamlet? Is he a reliable narrator? Or is he, like all the other characters in this play, playing at something? Is he being honest with his audience? Stick with me as I try to untangle this knot. If Shakespeare knew the merchandising opportunities he missed out on with Yorick's skull, he'd be rolling over in his grave for sure. Let's take a look at this symbol next. Okay, Act 5, Scene 1. Up until this point, Hamlet has definitely done some musing on death, but here, in the graveyard, with Yorick's skull at hand, our prince launches into his most extensive meditation on the topic. Here are a couple things to remember about the symbol of Yorick's skull. First, although Hamlet has often lamented life's uncertainty, he finds, represented in the skull, one grim certainty: the inevitability of death. Remember what he says to it. "Now get you to my lady's chamber and tell her, let her paint an inch thick, to this favor she must come." In other words, try as we might, we can't avoid death. Second, remember that Yorick was the court jester. Significant because Yorick spent his life making others laugh. But in the end, what had the last laugh? Death, of course. And now the skull smiles at Hamlet as though to mock his own mortality. And that leads us to the third aspect of this symbol. Perhaps it's most relevant as an omen. After all, Hamlet's death is just one scene away. Hamlet. No, it's not the name for a baby pig. Hamlet is the mysterious protagonist of our play. We won't figure him out in 60 seconds, but I'll give you some clues. In Recap 6, we'll be talking about how Shakespeare develops a theme of uncertainty in this play. Here's one way. You're a main character who leaves you feeling uncertain that he's the guy he seems to be. Here's what we do know about Hamlet. He's philosophical, cynical. He's seriously depressed. Some people have called Hamlet indecisive, perhaps because it takes so long for him to avenge his father's death. But I think a better description of Hamlet is that he's deeply, almost obsessively, contemplative. Hamlet struggles to find truth in an uncertain world, whether it be the truth about his father's death or the truth about other characters' motives and intentions. Most significantly of all, Hamlet is consciously mysterious. What I mean is, he even admits to the fact that there's more going on in his character than other characters, or his audience members, can fathom. And even his soliloquies, his speeches to himself, give the impression that there's something important that he's just not saying. You want more? What more can I add? The guy's a mystery. And let's face it, you can't figure out a character who doesn't want to be figured out. Isn't it just like Shakespeare, king of wordplay, to use Hamlet as an exploration of the uncertainty of certainty? Did you catch that? Basically, Shakespeare is saying that you can't be certain about certainty. For certain! More on this theme coming up. For a guy who's allegedly crazy, Hamlet is pretty intent on getting his facts straight. He wants to be sure that Claudius is his father's murderer before he takes any action. Think about it. The ghost speech in Act 1 enrages Hamlet and he vows revenge. But then what does he do? He basically waits until Act 5 to act. And what is he doing in the meantime? He's trying to get at the truth. Like in Act 3, Scene 2, when he stages a play to mimic his father's murder and watches for Claudius's reaction. But Hamlet's uncertainty is bigger than just the issue of King Hamlet's unfortunate demise. It permeates his interactions with all the characters in this play. He doesn't trust them. And can you blame the guy? Seems like everyone has it out for him. So what was Shakespeare getting at with this theme of uncertainty? He was getting at exactly what Hamlet experiences throughout the play. That it's basically impossible to know what's in another person's heart. That truth is unknowable. That believing that another is honest is a matter of great trust or great naivete. Not exactly a hopeful message. Then again, Shakespeare didn't call this play a tragedy for nothing. If you watched Recaps 2 and 5, you know that Hamlet is a play about mysteries. I'll add one more mystery to the stew next. Shakespeare's Hamlet starts and ends with death, so it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that the nature of death is one of the themes of this play. Hamlet encounters death everywhere, in his father's ghost, in Yorick's skull, and in Polonius and Ophelia's demises. These run-ins prompt Hamlet to look at death from lots of different angles. Remember that the ghost of his father causes Hamlet to think about the spiritual aftermath of death. And remember that after Polonius' death in Act 4, Hamlet comments that the worm that ate a king's corpse might be used to catch a fish to feed a beggar. In other words, death is also the great equalizer. So after all this philosophical pondering, what exactly does Hamlet discover about death? In a sense, Nothing at all. Sure, Hamlet looks to death as a long-awaited moment of certainty. He sees death as a stepping stone to truth and away from an ambiguous, dishonest world. But in the end, how would Hamlet really know? After all, the only thing we know for certain about death is that it remains life's greatest mystery. If you watched recaps 2 and 5, you know that Hamlet is a play about mysteries. I'll add one more mystery to the stew next. Shakespeare's Hamlet starts and ends with death, so it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that the nature of death is one of the themes of this play. Hamlet encounters death everywhere, in his father's ghost, in Yorick's skull, and in Polonius and Ophelia's demises. These run-ins prompt Hamlet to look at death from lots of different angles. Remember that the ghost of his father causes Hamlet to think about the spiritual aftermath of death. And remember that after Polonius's death in Act 4, Hamlet comments that the worm that ate a king's corpse might be used to catch a fish to feed a beggar. In other words, death is also the great equalizer. So after all this philosophical pondering, what exactly does Hamlet discover about death? In a sense, nothing at all. Sure, Hamlet looks to death as a long-awaited moment of certainty. He sees death as a stepping stone to truth and away from an ambiguous, dishonest world. But in the end, how would Hamlet really know? After all, the only thing we know for certain about death is that it remains life's greatest mystery.